Sarah Miller joins us to talk about breaking up big corporations. This is a huge issue, no pun intended. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. So is it time to break up everything big? On the line with us is Sarah Miller, the executive director of the American Economic Liberties Project and the co-chair of Freedom from Facebook. Economicliberties.us is the website, and Sarah Miller, DC, is her Twitter handle, Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the program. Tell us about the Pandemic Anti-Monopoly Act.
Sure, Tom. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you. So basically what's happening right now in our economy, whether we like it or not, is this pandemic is allowing large corporations and kind of predatory financial institutions to roll up power, to buy distressed assets, to merge, to kind of bring even more kind of economic and political power to bear on the economy and society. And so what this act would do is essentially just say, we're going to put a timeout on mergers at this point in time when so many businesses are under pandemic-related distress. It's a really common sense merger, common sense bill. It has provisions to kind of mitigate against sort of any kind of problematic aspects of it. And it will help businesses that should be thriving in normal times continue to thrive, and the communities that they support to do so as well.
I think most Americans don't realize what kind of a crisis that we are actually living through as a result of bigness here in the United States, these giant monopolies. We pay more for airfare than most countries in the world, for example. Internet, you can get internet service, well, in France for about $25 a month. You get high-speed internet, 100 MIPS up and down, and you get your cell phone service, and you get 100 channels of cable TV because they've got competition. They allow the company that owns the pipe into your house basically can't also be the exclusive provider to you of television service or of internet access. Those are the smallest examples. I mean, the best estimate is that the average American is spending $5,000 a year extra as essentially a monopoly tax, that we're paying extra for everything from pharmaceuticals to internet service because of these giant monopolies. How do we wake people up to this, and how bad is it compared to the rest of the world, or particularly compared to Europe, where they've been fairly aggressive about preventing these kind of monopolies from emerging?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think what we're seeing now in the context of the kind of economic policy response to this pandemic is an opportunity to have this debate. Big corporations, big banks have access to lending from the Fed. It flows with the push of a button. Smaller businesses, working people have to go through clunky systems that aren't really set up to support them during kind of critical moments like these. So you are seeing kind of in real time the way that our public institutions are oriented around making life easier for the largest economic entities, the most powerful economic entities in the country. And we'll see a whole number of kind of ill effects flowing from that. But, you're exactly right. We are already, previous to this crisis, at a point where large corporate monopolies were extracting wealth from consumers and workers to the tune of $5,000 a year. And you can put that kind of in the context of the $1,200 stimulus check that people are getting. Well, a lot of that is going to go straight out the door to large landlords, to healthcare monopolies, to internet monopolies, with a lot of people working from home, right? So this is the goal of our project here. It is to kind of generate a political movement to take on abusive and extractive monopolies that have come to really control key aspects of our economy and our society.
You've got a couple of real structural challenges in the face of this. You've got the GTE Sylvania Supreme Court decision, in which they finally adopted Robert Bork's theory that monopolies were actually a good thing for economies because large corporations have greater economies of scale than multiple small companies in the same industry. Then this was adopted by Congress in a whole variety of different ways. And largely in 1983, when the Reagan administration stopped enforcing, for all practical purposes, the Sherman Antitrust Act and all of its heirs, the Clayton Antitrust Act, the Anti-Monopoly Act of, I think it was 1954. How do we deal with these structural pieces. You know, the Supreme Court basically endorsing monopoly in the United States, and the incredible damage that the Reagan administration did, which was never undone. It wasn't undone by Clinton or Obama. You know, it's basically still the policy of the U.S. government to allow giant mergers.
Yeah, you're right about that. You certainly know your history on all this stuff. So essentially,
I just wrote a book about it.
Well, one of the positive things I think about this challenge is that there are kind of a range of institutions and tools that you can use to take on concentrated corporate power. Stopping mergers and kind of unwinding mergers is a specific piece of that and a particular problem. But there are kind of so many ways that our institutions are biased towards supporting the largest corporations and big banks and against everybody else. And so what we can do is you can pass legislation that directly addresses questions of market power, like we did after the Depression. You can make new rules at the Federal Trade Commission, which has the authority to do that it doesn't use. State attorneys general can step in. So it's not like there is a one-size-fits-all solution. As part of this overall project, should Congress step in and overturn really bad Supreme Court precedent? Yes, and I think that's something that we need to build power and work to achieve over time. But it is not necessarily true that we have to kind of sit on our hands until Congress acts. I think there are a lot of different avenues to start chipping away at what is a deeply embedded structural problem in our economy right now, and we have to kind of try to continue to find ways to do that. So I think just having the Pandemic Anti-Monopoly Act, as part of this debate and as part of this conversation is an important step forward.
You know, in the Sherman Antitrust Act, Senator Sherman of Ohio first put that forward in 1881. I think it passed in 1890, as I recall, or got signed. But really, that last decade of the 19th century, it largely wasn't used. It wasn't until Teddy Roosevelt came along and really started championing this. And then, you know, the guy who followed him, William Howard Taft, both Republicans. You know, Taft supervised the dismantling of Standard Oil of Ohio. Do you see, or Standard Oil of whatever it was at that time, do you see any Democratic champions who are in a position to be the next Teddy Roosevelt or William Taft, who are willing to put?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say right now things are in a huge amount of flux. I think even before this crisis, there was just a lot of learning going on among progressives in particular on how our economy got so unequal, how our democracy got so weak, and a growing kind of recognition that at the root of a lot of these problems, or certainly kind of adjacent and exacerbating them, are questions around concentrated corporate power and all the kind of pernicious effects that has on consumers and workers and political participation and just kind of justice in our economy at a fundamental level. So I think what I'm seeing is kind of a growing circle of leaders and of political actors and of businesses and of labor unions who are kind of all beginning to kind of grapple with some of these questions in ways that haven't been done in 40 years. So I don't put my hopes on a single FDR figure necessarily, but I do think that this is a process in which we are re-examining a lot of the fundamental assumptions for the first time in a long time.